Hello, Sleepyheads, and welcome back to Yawn and Learn, the channel where your curiosity curls up under a warm blanket and history gently tucks you in. I'm your host, Simone, your bedtime historian, storyteller, and occasional candle snuffer. Tonight, we're heading back to a time of castles, cobblestones, and surprisingly complex sleep schedules. Let me ask you something. Have you ever woken up at 3 a.m., stared at the ceiling, and thought, "Great, now my sleep is ruined"? Well, what if I told you that waking up in the middle of the night was once not only normal, but expected? In fact, people used to have two sleeps. They even had names for them: first sleep and second sleep. Yup, medieval folks would sleep for a few hours, wake up for a bit, do stuff, then go back to bed. No blue light, no melatonin gummies, no sleep apps trying to guess your REM cycle with surprising confidence. Just good old-fashioned segmented slumber. Tonight, we're going to dim the torchlight and explore this lost rhythm of the night. We'll stroll through medieval bedrooms, not as glamorous as you're picturing, uncover ancient sleep science, and maybe, just maybe, figure out why your great-great-great-great-grandma would be perfectly chill about your insomnia. So fluff your pillow, wrap yourself up like a burrito of curiosity, and let's begin. Back to the medieval night. Let's set the scene. Europe, roughly the year 1400. No electricity, no TikTok, no 3 a.m. pizza delivery. When the sun went down, the world got dark. Like, really dark. We're talking about a time when mood lighting meant a candle and a prayer it wouldn't burn your thatched roof down. Most people lived by the sun. They'd wake at dawn, work through the daylight, and when the sky turned orange and purple, it was time to wind down. Without artificial light to stretch the day, nightfall wasn't just evening. It was a full-on curtain drop. So what did people do? They went to sleep early. We're talking around 8 or 9 p.m. And here's where things get interesting. They didn't sleep all the way through. Instead, they experienced what we now call segmented sleep. Their first sleep would last about 4 hours. Then, like clockwork, they'd wake up. Not because of noise, nightmares, or a neighbor playing medieval bagpipes too loud, but just naturally. As in, the body wanted to be awake for a little while. This wakeful period usually lasted an hour or two. Then came second sleep, lasting until dawn. Sound weird? Maybe, but it wasn't weird then. It was so common that people didn't even comment on it like it was something special. The same way, we don't marvel at brushing our teeth every morning, even though medieval people probably would have marveled at that too. The historian Roger Urquhart, bless his sleepy little heart, was the one who really dug into this. In his delightfully titled book, At Day's Close, Night in Times Past, he found over 500 references to segmented sleep in old diaries, letters, medical texts, and court records. People didn't just mention it, they built their lives around it. There are medieval court cases where people testified, "I was awake during the interval between the two sleeps when I heard the sound." Doctors of the time wrote prescriptions around it. Apply ointment during the waking hour. Priests encouraged prayer during this peaceful window. And yes, even poets got in on it. Take this gem from a 16th century English poem. "The waking hour, twixt sleeps divine, a time for thoughts to intertwine." Translation: 2 a.m. was apparently the original vibe check. Now, you might be wondering, why would people naturally wake up in the middle of the night? Isn't that the opposite of what sleep experts today tell us? Well, it turns out that without artificial light, your melatonin levels, that sleepy hormone your body releases, rise and fall very differently. When night truly feels like night, your brain follows a more ancient biological rhythm, one that seems to be wired for two separate chunks of sleep. In fact, in modern studies where people were placed in darkness for 14 hours a day, which, by the way, sounds like a retreat and a punishment, they naturally began sleeping in two segments, no instruction needed. So it wasn't just a medieval thing. It might be a human thing. And if that's the case, maybe the next time you wake up in the middle of the night, instead of doom scrolling or Googling is 3 a.m. wake up a sign of stress or ghosts, you could remember, you're not broken. You're just medieval. What did people do at 2 a.m.? All right, so it's 2 a.m. You're wide awake in your medieval bed, which is probably stuffed with straw, smells faintly of goat, and is shared with a spouse, 2 kids, and possibly a chicken. What now? Well, turns out, a lot could happen between first and second sleep. This watching hour, as it was sometimes called, wasn't just dead time. It was a quiet, gentle pocket in the middle of the night, like a reset button, a moment to think, breathe, be. 1. Prayer and reflection. First and foremost, prayer. Monks and nuns were actually required to pray during this time. For the super devout, the middle of the night was considered sacred, a peaceful moment when the world was asleep and your soul could whisper to the divine without interruption. Even lay people, regular folks, might take this time to recite prayers, read religious texts if they were lucky enough to be literate, or simply sit in silence and reflect. Think of it like medieval mindfulness, but colder. 2. Tending to the fire and the house. Homes back then didn't come with radiators or central heating. If the fire died, your toes froze. So many people used this time to quietly get up, stir the coals, add more wood, and make sure the house wasn't about to turn into an icebox. Some even took care of small household chores, mending clothes, cleaning up, or checking on animals in the barn. Imagine folding laundry by candlelight while everyone else snores. It sounds terrible, but if you're a medieval parent with 4 kids and no me time, this might have been your version of a spa night. 3. Talking, thinking, dreaming. People also talked during this time. Some used the hour to have deep conversations with their spouse. Others sat alone and thought about their dreams, both the sleeping kind and the life goal kind. The French even had a term for this time, dorveil, a mix of sleeping and wakefulness, like that dreamy, floaty state when your brain is still in its pajamas. And speaking of dreamy, 4. Sex. Yep, let's talk about it. Many medical texts from the 15th and 16th centuries actually recommended intimacy during the interval between sleeps. Why? According to physicians like Thomas Cogan, the body was relaxed, the mind was calm, and, well, the fire was still warm. And while we don't have detailed Yelp reviews from medieval couples, we do know this practice was considered normal, and even ideal, by doctors of the time. So if you've ever felt more, let's say, romantically inspired in the middle of the night, you're not alone. You're just aligning with your ancestral bedtime instincts. 5. Writing and creativity. Some night owls use this time to create. One Italian nobleman wrote that he did his best thinking during the second sleep interval and would often jot down ideas, poems, or letters. Others kept journals, and not the Dear Diary, Lord Geoffrey was rude at dinner kind. We're talking deep, reflective thoughts written with a feather dipped in ink by candlelight while wearing a nightshirt that could double as a curtain. So while modern insomnia feels like a curse, in the Middle Ages, waking up in the middle of the night was just life. You prayed, stirred the fire, whispered to your partner, maybe got a little frisky, and then, when your eyelids grew heavy again, you drifted off for your second sleep. Romantic? Maybe. Productive? Arguably. Cold and smoky? Definitely. But also kind of beautiful in its own way. Where did this sleep pattern come from? So here's the question. Was segmented sleep just some quirky medieval habit? A weird byproduct of drafty castles and too much mead? Actually, No, it might be way older than the Middle Ages, like way older. The ancient human clock. Let's rewind thousands of years. Back before cities, kingdoms, or even farming. In hunter-gatherer societies, people lived closely with the natural world, and that meant sleeping and waking with the sun. Anthropologists who studied remote tribes in Central America, Africa, and the Amazon found something curious. These communities, with no electricity or artificial light, often don't sleep in one long block. Instead, they tend to go to bed shortly after dark, wake up in the middle of the night for a while, and then drift back to sleep until sunrise. Sound familiar? So, segmented sleep may not have been invented by medieval monks. It may have been inherited from our very earliest ancestors, like an ancient biological rhythm we forgot about when we plugged in the Wi-Fi. Melatonin and moonlight. Here's a quick science bite. Melatonin is the hormone that helps us fall asleep. It rises when it gets dark and drops when it gets light. But it turns out it doesn't just drop once you're asleep. In total darkness, melatonin sometimes dips in the middle of the night, and your brain naturally stirs awake, not fully alert, just lightly rebooting. It's kind of like your internal system does a nighttime software update before putting you back to sleep. Artificial light, especially from screens, disrupts this rhythm. It tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime, delaying melatonin and pushing your body toward one long delayed sleep instead of a natural two-part rhythm. So maybe the problem isn't that we're waking up at 3 a.m. Maybe the problem is Netflix and ring lights. It wasn't just Europe. Segmented sleep isn't just a medieval European thing. There are references to two-phase sleeping in cultures all over the world. In ancient Chinese medicine, the liver was believed to regenerate energy between 1 and 3 a.m., a time associated with rest, but also with insight and clarity. In Islamic culture, the practice of tahajjud, voluntary late-night prayer, aligns closely with this midnight wakefulness. Some Native American tribes had communal wakeful periods in the middle of the night, used for storytelling, bonding, or ceremony. Turns out, waking up in the dark has been deeply human for a very long time. And then came the light. How modern life stole our sleep. So, what did happen to segmented sleep? If it was so common, so natural, why did we stop? 1. The Industrial Revolution says hi. It all started with a little thing called progress. In the 18th and 19th centuries, factories roared to life, cities lit up, and people began organizing their lives around clocks instead of candles. Suddenly, sleep had a curfew. Workers were expected to rise early, stay alert all day, and sleep in one efficient block at night. 2 sleeps. That's twice the downtime. Not very productive. So, bit by bit, culture shifted. First sleep and second sleep vanished into history, like chamber pots and powdered wigs. And if you woke up at 2 a.m., you probably didn't tell anyone, because now that meant something was wrong with you. 2. The light bulb moment, literally. When Thomas Edison invented the electric light bulb in 1879, he didn't just brighten our homes, he messed with our melatonin. Artificial light allowed people to stay up later than ever before. Shops stayed open, parties ran longer, and newspapers warned about the temptations of night owls. What used to be a quiet moment of spiritual or creative reflection at 2 a.m. was now a moment to check your telegrams or read 5 serialized chapters of Dickens. The result? People started going to bed later and cramming all their sleep into one big chunk. It was the birth of the modern sleep cycle and the slow death of segmented sleep. 3. Screens, the melatonin assassins. Fast forward to today. We've upgraded from candles to Edison bulbs to glowing rectangles that live in our pockets. Phones, tablets, TVs, All of them emit blue light, which messes with your brain's melatonin like a bouncer kicking it out of the club. And just to make sure we don't sleep well, we fill those screens with emails, TikToks, horror movies, and very questionable Reddit threads at 1:47 a.m. It's no wonder we don't fall asleep naturally anymore. Our ancestors were drifting off after prayer or a warm fire. We're scrolling through memes about raccoons stealing pizza. One of these methods is clearly more restful. Hint, it's not the raccoon. Midnight thoughts. What people actually did between sleeps. You wake up. It's around 2 a.m. The fire's burned low, the room is chilly, and the silence is so thick you could butter it. So what did medieval folks do in that strange middle-of-the-night window? Well, turns out, quite a lot. Some of it deeply spiritual, some of it incredibly ordinary, and some of it surprisingly spicy. Let's dive in. A holy hour. Literally. For many, this was sacred time. Monks even had a name for it. Vigils. Religious texts encouraged prayer during these early hours. It was believed that the veil between heaven and earth was thinner, a divine time for reflection. So people prayed, silently, or with whispered chants. They read psalms by candlelight. They thanked the saints for their sheep not dying during the night. It was basically the medieval version of journaling with lo-fi music on. And if you were really devout, maybe you even snuck out to attend matins at the local monastery. Nothing says cozy spiritual vibes like trekking through snow at 3 a.m. in a robe and sandals. Family time, but quietly. Other folks used this time for gentle conversation. Think of it as the original 2 a.m. podcast. Two people barely awake, whispering about life, goats, and whether the neighbor's pig is possessed again. Parents might check on their children, spouses might debrief about the day, or just hold hands under wool blankets. It was a kind of intimate, low-pressure connection time, like pillow talk, but with significantly more hay. Light chores. Yes, really. Some people actually got up and did things, like real things. They stoked the fire, checked the animals, made a bit of bread dough. If I'm going to be awake, might as well get a head start on breakfast. Others used the quiet to mend clothes, sharpen tools, or, for the literate elite, even write letters. There are actual historical records of people replying to correspondence at 2:30 a.m., because apparently medieval inbox zero was a real thing. Let's talk about intimacy. Now, here's where things get steamy, in a hay-scented kind of way. According to several 15th and 16th century medical texts, this in-between sleep period was considered the ideal time for intimacy, because the body had rested, the mind was clear, and, let's face it, you're already in bed, no one's checking their phone, no distractions, just medieval romance. One physician from the 1500s, Thomas Cogan, wrote that this window was when nature calleth most sweetly unto the marriage bed, which is possibly the most charmingly awkward way to talk about anything romantic. In short, the 2 a.m. wake-up wasn't just accepted, it was sometimes anticipated. Creative sparks at midnight. But it wasn't all chores and cuddles. Some people used this time to think deeply. Writers, philosophers, and thinkers often described this middle hour as their most lucid. Dreams still clung to the mind. The world was quiet, and ideas just floated in. Even today, many creative people report getting their best ideas at night. Maybe it's something ancient in us, some echo of those segmented nights that linger still. So the next time you find yourself awake in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, know that you're participating in a long, weird, beautiful human tradition. You're not broken. You're just historically accurate. What if you're still waking up at 3 a.m.? So here you are. It's 3:08 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling, replaying that one awkward thing you said 3 years ago, and wondering if you should get up, scroll, or just try to count imaginary sheep in medieval outfits. Let's slow down, let's take a breath, and let's ask something gentle. What if this isn't a problem to fix, but a pattern your body remembers? The echo of ancient rhythms. See, when you wake in the night, your modern brain screams, "Oh no, insomnia, cortisol, productivity ruined." But your ancient biology? It shrugs and says, "Oh, hey, it's the midnight pause again. Want to pray, snuggle, or fix a sandal?" That wakeful window might not be broken sleep. It might be remembered sleep, an evolutionary rhythm still encoded in your DNA. Thousands of years of segmented sleep don't just vanish because Edison invented a light bulb. Is 8 hours of sleep even normal? We're told that 8 hours straight is the gold standard, like sleep perfection. But based on what? Most modern sleep science is built around industrial work schedules. Factories, school bells, night shifts. That's what shaped the unbroken night ideal. But long before factories, segmented sleep was just how people slept. And in recent studies, when people are removed from artificial light, guess what happens? They revert to segmented patterns naturally. Your brain may not want 8 hours. It may want 2 beautiful slices of sleep with a midnight filling of peace. Gentle midnight rituals that aren't doom scrolling. So what should you do if you wake at 3 a.m.? Instead of fighting it, try one of these medieval and modern-inspired ideas. Light a candle safely, sit with the flame for a few moments. Journal. Don't overthink it, just write whatever's in your head. Read a calm book, preferably one with at least one monk. Meditate. Breathe. Don't chase sleep. Invite it gently. Pet your cat if one happens to be curled at your feet. Whisper something nice to yourself. I'm not broken. I'm medieval. You don't have to be productive. You don't have to fix anything. You can just be a little island of stillness in the middle of your night ocean. From panic to peace, this is your permission slip. If you wake in the middle of the night, it doesn't mean you've failed at sleep. It might mean your body is doing something incredibly human, something ancient and intelligent. Let go of the panic. Lean into the pause. Maybe even enjoy it. Because 600 years ago, someone else, in a stone cottage beneath a fur blanket, was also blinking at the ceiling and thinking, I should really check on the goats, but also, what is the meaning of life? And so, dear dreamers, as we tuck this episode in, remember, segmented sleep isn't weird, it's wonderfully human. And you're part of a long, sleepy lineage. Monks, farmers, lovers, thinkers, all sharing that quiet space between two sleeps. If tonight's journey soothed your mind or sparked a sleepy curiosity, don't forget to give a gentle thumbs up. Subscribe to Yawn and learn for more history that whispers instead of shouts. Until next time, fluff your pillow, dim the lights, and embrace the magic of the midnight hour. Sweet segmented dreams. Good night,